Yeah, welcome into the Thursday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Hope everybody's off to a good start to their day. We got a lot of things to get into today. Going to be a good show. Going to be a big show today. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
I mean, I'm good. This studio is absolutely clean as a whistle.
It is.
Absolutely fantastic. I think the three of us all did very good work. I really did clean toilets, by the way, yesterday. I want that on the record.
I would go ahead and award Rexrode, I think, team MVP of 102.5 The Game cleanup day.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Actually, I thought Keyser was really getting after it a little bit.
Keyser remained a little sassy as he was doing it.
Yeah, He was talking a lot of trash. But, I mean, we've kind of learned. Don't mess with Keyser.
Apparently so.
Right?
Fun times.
He's just in there with that smile, like you just don't know what's going to happen. It's good. He's kind of got
How are you
us all
feeling
on
today,
edge.
Nick?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah,
That's good.
lots of good cleaning yesterday. Joe and I killed it over there in both of those spare studios that we have. And then
Kuharski was sitting there watching you.
that's right.
Yep.
Jared taking a whatever of a break and taking some phone calls and closing the door.
Yeah, did Jared do anything? I think he started doing stuff for like 5 minutes. All of a sudden, I never saw him.
Wait a
again.
minute.
know.
Manual labor? What is this? Can't do it.
Then he's like talking to me about, have you ever had a job? I'm like, what? And I
Oh,
started
yeah, when you were
listing
talking about-
listing all my jobs.
Have you ever had
for
a
him.
job?
Yeah, Joe, you and I worked at a grocery store growing up, so there's something I didn't know
Oh, you
until
did too?
yesterday. Yeah.
Were you a bagger like me?
No, I worked in groceries, so I ran stock. So
There you
you go.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was also a stock boy at a department store in Virginia too.
Wow.
For the record,
There you go.
pizza delivery, gas station attendant, cafeteria worker in
Nice.
a dorm.
Cafeteria worker.
Should I keep going?
A man of many
As
talents.
a hot trucker.
Yeah.
You know what a hot trucker is? That's when
No.
you bring the huge vats of food, but you got to,
Okay.
And then when you get promoted up to milk, that's a great job.
Ooh,
You
big
put the
day.
big bags of milk in the milk thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a much better job.
Man of many talents, Joe
Yeah.
Rexrode.
Yes, thank
You
you.
know, the program.
Make it
Jared listed no jobs for me. I don't know what. Like collecting football
Jared?
cards? I don't know.
You imagine Jared, like, taking an order somewhere? I just feel like it would be a disaster.
Now, why you want to order that?
We'll get to your order here in a minute, but did you see the Titans practice yesterday?
That's a trash order. Joe's going to retire and make mints without wrappers.
Oh, boy.
His own brand.
God,
Maybe so.
trying to forget about that, Nick, please.
We got a lot to get into today on the program. Todd Richards, Predators assistant coach, will join us at 7:15. The NHL trade deadline is getting underway now. A lot of trades coming through yesterday, including a former Predator on the move. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports from 8 to 8:30. NFL free agency beginning next week, so we'll get Charles's perspective on that. Looking forward to that. And the Tennessee Volunteers winning the SEC regular season championship last night with another win on the road against South Carolina. They win 66-59, and Tennessee gets it done. And this impressive stretch continues, Joe, and that's where we begin today. So this 4-game stretch that we've highlighted, Tennessee right now is 3 for 3. They've got Kentucky coming up on Saturday to close out the regular season. But we know they are going to be the SEC champions. They have won the SEC regular season championship. They've won at least 3 out of these 4 big games that we've circled. We'll see if they can finish the job at home on Saturday against Kentucky, who, by the way, beat Vanderbilt last night 93-77. And an SEC regular season title for Tennessee, a program that doesn't have a whole lot of those. Big stuff last night for the Vols, and another huge win on the road.
Yeah, it's a big time, man, for them to win all these games. And I know this isn't your kind of game, 66-59, but that was, just first of all, from the people who were there and their accounts, but also just from TV, I mean, that looked like one of the best atmospheres in college basketball this year, from what I could tell. And they handled it, man. They handled it, and they played their defense. Dalton Connect comes out and just, he hits his first 4 threes, and at that point things were kind of, they were, South Carolina was jacked up. The place was ready to go off, and he just kept silencing it with threes.
Yep.
And then, he ends up with 26. But it's the 3 guys, Ziegler, Vescovy, and Adu, and then the defense, and Meshack late again. I mean, so they go into the fastest, best offense in the country and one of the best atmospheres and win Saturday. Then they go into one of the slowest teams in college basketball, Lamont Paris, a Wisconsin Bo Ryan disciple, total grinder of a team, great team. He's going to be SEC Coach of the Year, and they win that style of game. I mean, they just keep getting it done. Like, it's a special, special team. And, outright SEC titles. Did you just, that was weird. I got, muted in the middle of that sentence for a minute. Is that you over there, Keezer? No? Whoa.
You hitting boards?
I think maybe we over-cleaned this microphone. It's 36, 37. So the SEC started in 32. So 36, 37. I'm sure those teams were a blast to watch.
I'm sure they were.
43, and then 67. That was Ray Mears. And since then, they've had one of these, which was Bruce Pearl's 08 Lofton team, amazing team that won at Memphis and all that stuff. And that's it. Outright. You know what I realized, by the way? Just side note, Robby, on this, as I just continue to just talk and talk and talk. I hate I would have been absolutely pulling my hair out if I covered the SEC back in the 2000s when you got credit for a share of a title for winning the division. They did it like divisions.
Yeah.
So Tennessee, they count I think 12 SEC titles, but it's so you won the East, but the West winner was 3 games better. That's not a co-title, but they count it that way. Yeah. So, but I do know outright titles. You're talking about 6 ever. 1 since Vietnam, okay?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's
pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
Well, we've talked about that. Everybody's going to focus in on the NCAA tournament with this group. But one thing I said, there's not some rich history of Tennessee men's basketball to point back to and say, yeah, well, who cares about an SEC championship? I mean, this is a big deal for this team, and they've done it in, like you said. I mean, it's fascinating to watch this path here. Because you mentioned the pace that Alabama plays with, going on the road, winning that game. It's a complete opposite in South Carolina. And, Joe, I mean, they might have to be prepared to score 85, 90 points at home on Saturday if they're going to win against Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think so.
It's just different ways of winning that this team is equipped to do. And, look, their defense is gonna give them a chance most every night. Their offense has come a long way this year. Obviously, Connect is a big part of that. And this is, I think, clearly the best team that Rick Barnes has had at Tennessee. And what's that going to translate to come tournament time? I don't know. But, I mean, last night, even for somebody like me who is a Tennessee fan, who I would describe myself as a casual college basketball fan, it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch them close that out and close the deal last night and win an SEC title. And, I value the SEC regular season title more than I do the tournament championship, and maybe they'll win both. We'll see what happens here. But, number one, it's a great moment for this team, for this group. It's a great moment for Tennessee basketball. And I saw a couple people tweet this out last night, especially if they finish the job against Kentucky coming up. If they win against Kentucky and they've won the SEC regular season championship, which is the greatest conference in the sport this year, they win all 4 of these games to close out the season. To me, regardless of what they do in the SEC tournament, strong 1-seed consideration. They need to be a 1 seed.
Yeah, I agree for sure. The Kentucky game makes it 4 straight top 20 ranked team. That's never happened before. They're 3-0. Yeah, so I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that, which is to sweep Kentucky, win the SEC this year. How is this not the greatest Tennessee team? That's another argument.
Yeah.
But yes, no, I think the 1 seed, Arizona, they just don't have the same opportunity. The Pac-12 is it's about to disappear. But also they just don't have the same opportunity in that league that Tennessee does. So I think if they beat Kentucky, I guess if they were to lose the opener in the SEC tournament, Arizona wins out, then, it's close. It could go either way. I think if they – and here's another little hot take for me. I'm an advocate, especially because Charlotte is a Thursday site, of them. If it's not the end of the world if they don't win the SEC tournament and they don't play 3 straight days and then immediately turn around and have to play on Thursday.
Right.
I've just, seen it before where teams can get their legs – taken out from under them because of stuff like that. But, they're awfully close to closing. I think Lenardi switched. Most of the people now have them as a 1. But, if they lost to Kentucky at home, does that go back? It's very close.
Yeah. Dustin from Hopkinsville says, these cats aren't the same cats. We got a defense now. Everyone's healthy 3 games in a row, so ready for this dogfight.
Dustin.
To which my response was, they literally just gave up 102 points to Arkansas less than a week ago.
Yeah, Dustin, I watched the first half last night against Vanderbilt, and I will say there was a late run to keep Vandy to 40 at the half. It's not the worst, but I don't know if you're beating the drum with the defense right now. It's definitely better than it was a few weeks ago when I was like, what is happening right now? Is Cal not practicing? But no, I mean it should. I mean, look, I think it could be a great game because Dillingham, Shepard, I mean, all those guys. I mean, they are absurdly loaded. I mean, they are ridiculous offensively. So no, I think it'll be a fun game, and they got a shot. They absolutely have a shot in TBA.
Tennessee wins the SEC regular season championship last night with their win on the road against South Carolina. We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. What does that win mean for Tennessee basketball, this program, and how do you feel about this team as tournament time is now just right around the corner starting next week in SEC play? 615-737-1025, our phone number. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by Chuck McDowell Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Tennessee wins against South Carolina last night, 66-59, and they wrap up the SEC regular season title. Taking your thoughts on that, the SEC tournament here in Nashville next week, and Tennessee feeling pretty good right now about their pursuit for a number one seed. It's interesting because I kind of view it as two different seasons in a way, Joe, because this one, like when you win the SEC regular season title, we just went through the history of Tennessee basketball. There's not a whole lot of these, and I think regardless of what happens from here on out, there's an appreciation level that I think Tennessee fans should have for this team, for this group, and what they've accomplished. And now, as they wrap this up, and I know there's a big game against Kentucky, and that's your big rival in basketball, so you always want to take down Kentucky. But after that, I mean, it's SEC tournament time, and then it's NCAA tournament time. And the team ultimately is going to be judged by what they do in the NCAA tournament. And that's fine. I just think that I kind of view it two different ways. There's the pre-tournament part of this where it's like, all right, this is a pretty cool thing that they've just done here and that they've accomplished. And then once we get to a couple weeks from now and the actual tournament begins, then that's going to be where the pressure really ramps up for this group, for Rick Barnes, for the team that they put together, the veterans that they have. You know, I heard you guys on Jared versus Joe yesterday talking about, like, you know, what sort of run do they have to go on in the tournament to call it a successful season. And, you know, I kind of land in the ballpark of, I mean, in order for the fan base to consider it a success, you're probably at least going to have to get to the Elite Eight. Like, that's the way I kind of view it. So, I mean, it's hard for me to get to, well, it must be the Final Four or bust for it to be a success. But that's why I kind of view this in two different windows of what's happening here. The pre-tournament part of this, where I think if you're a Tennessee fan who's watched Tennessee basketball for a long time, there should be a certain level of appreciation for this. And then I fully am aware in 2 weeks from now, all we're going to be talking about is, well, Rick Barnes and the tournament. Can they figure this out come tournament time?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to. You do have to kind of compartmentalize it. I mean, this team will always be remembered for. I mean, look, the fun of watching this team, the greatness of Dalton Connect in his 1 year, but also you kind of match that up with like James and Vescovy, and it's going to be their senior day on Saturday, and just what those guys have done for so many years. There's a lot to love about this team. That is not going to be changed by the NCAA tournament. But, yeah, I think you definitely have to get to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, you know, if you want to talk about what you need to do. To me, like if you're a 1 seed especially, plenty of 1 seeds lose to 8s or 9s. That happens, but you got to do it. You got to. You don't want to be the one that does.
Yeah.
The 1 seed, being a 1 seed, just by the numbers, by history, that greatly increases your chances of advancing and getting to the Final Four and all that stuff. So, you know, but you get to the second week of this tournament, you know, I mean, you're gonna be facing teams that are very, very capable of beating you. But at least get to that second weekend is how I always kind of look at it. And yeah, look, I mean, one time ever Tennessee has made the Elite Eight. I was there that day.
You were
in St. Louis. And Draymond, nice
Didn't
pass.
go well for
nice
Tennessee
pass,
that
Draymond. Draymond was a little chunkier back then. What's that?
Didn't go well for Tennessee that day.
No, it was a great game. But so you got to keep that in mind too. But at the same time, look, I mean, they have elevated the expectations to their credit, to Rick Barnes' credit, and there is frustration because they've had a couple other teams that could have definitely gone deeper. So, yeah, the pressure is going to be massive on this team. It's really an interesting dynamic because I do think that some of these guys have been through so much of this, it can't help but pay off, I would think. And I watch the way that they are reacting, you know, Saturday, last night, just the way the crowd's against them. They're never going to face another crowd like that, by the way.
No.
But when you're a favorite, the building turns against you in the NCAA tournament. They just have a poise about them. You know, and it definitely helps to have that dude just, okay, go get us a bucket, please. And I just think that they're equipped in every way for this thing.
Michael on the text line says, can we say that Tennessee has taken our expectations higher than we ever thought they could to a place that even the blind man can't see?
Is that the lyric?
Yeah,
is that the lyric? I didn't even realize that was the lyric.
We need more
That's
Creed.
the Scott Stapp lyric a blind man could see?
I don't think he says blind man.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I didn't realize that was the poetry of Scott Stapp. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. We can never get too far away from Creed or sweaty mints on this program.
It's always lurking around the corner. Just a constant, ever-present thing. Scott Stapp. No, I mean, they're going to come to town next week, and it'll be, I'm sure the SEC tournament next week will be a whole lot of Kentucky fans, a whole lot of Tennessee fans. I'm sure there'll be some Alabama fans that come up. That's going to be probably the majority of what we see. I mean, how cool!
Auburn will have a
good
be
presence,
strong.
that's for sure.
Auburn will be strong.
And as we know, and the Tennessee basketball account pointed this out last night, we know who Dalton Connect is going to get at least one vote now for SEC
That's
Player
right.
of the Year.
Bruce Pearl has absolutely put it out there. That's right.
Whoever wins the league, their player will get my vote. So now we know that Dalton Connect will get at least one vote.
He's got at least one. Yeah.
So
congratulations.
But I mean, now there's an opportunity. You've won the SEC regular season title. You've got a chance now to. I mean, you're going to get a significant bye next week in the tournament. Could you roll through the regular season title and then the SEC tournament title and get yourself a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament? I mean, you're racking up accomplishments at that point that there's not a long list of in the history of this league, in the history of this program. If you could roll through that, like a back-to-back weeks of SEC regular season title, and if you could win the tournament, that'd be a heck of a couple-week run there for the Vols.
Yeah. Well, first of all, cheers to anybody who is covering the Vols, and we get a noon game on Friday. Cheers to us. Okay, I know Mike Wilson and I are just gonna dance in the streets about that one. Well, think about that. So the outright title. It's funny that they had a tournament. They actually did have a tournament in the 40s. So John Maurer's Vols.
What was that like?
What's that?
What was that like?
I don't know. But John Maurer's Vols in 41 and 43 both won it outright and won the tournament.
You weren't there?
Oh, I get it. Yeah. Well, I was listening to it on my radio. I was too young.
It's good.
And I think that might be it, right? I mean, did they win? They didn't win the tournament in 08, did they? I don't think so. No, Georgia won the SEC tournament in that Lofton year. So, yeah, it's rare. And obviously, Rick Barnes has the 22 tournament title to go with now 2 regular season titles. I'm still sticking with beat whoever the 8 or 9 is that you play on Friday. It could be like Texas A&M,
right.
Could be Mississippi State, somebody like that, and then lose the next day and rest your legs.
Rest up.
Now, I understand that all the Vols fans are going to be in that building or scream at that idea, and these guys are competitors, and they would scoff at it. If it happens to if it comes to pass, like Kentucky hits a 3 at the buzzer to beat you in the semis, might not be the worst thing. But no, it's going to be an amazing tournament. And 19 was one of the great. The 19 Kentucky-Tennessee semifinal.
It was great.
It was half and half in that building, and as anybody who goes to the SEC tournament knows, half and half with Kentucky is very rare.
Yep.
Their lives are built around traveling to wherever the Cats are going to be, and they know they're going to be in Nashville. So, but they had half the building orange, and that game was amazing. You almost forgot that Auburn blew out Tennessee the next day in the final.
Josh in Kentucky says Tennessee should be the 1 seed just for being the SEC regular season champs. SEC is the toughest league in the country, regardless of what the talking heads say about the Big 12. This is from Josh in Kentucky.
Well, first of all, it's very close. In fact, I went through it. I went back and forth in comments on my column from the Alabama game, and someone was like, I'm here, it's the Big 12. And I was like, no. And then I looked at it, and actually RPI, Big 12 has moved past. It's very close. But just understand, Josh, talking heads, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the committee does what they do. They don't do things like, oh, well, they won the toughest league, so they should be the 1 seed. League schedules are very imbalanced. So they're just breaking down every single game and all the metrics, and they're digging in on the numbers. Now, Tennessee's schedule in the SEC has been tough. In an imbalanced schedule, that's where I'm so impressed by this. They had to play Alabama both places, South Carolina both places, Kentucky both places.
Yep.
So they have earned it.
Auburn too, right?
No, they did not have
to
go to
play Auburn once?
They did not have to go to
Okay.
Auburn. Yeah. So, but still, I mean, I think that's probably as tough as anybody. But yeah, I mean, it's that's just not what you give a 1 seed for. You give it for it's your quad 1, your quad 2, and all those things. But they're racking up the quad 1 wins. I don't. If they win Saturday, man, I think it's really tough for them to not get a 1 seed.
I would agree. I mean, that would be just a heck of a run to close out the season there. And again, I mean, I think if they win Saturday and they win the Friday game of the SEC tournament, then it's probably a lock at that point, right? I mean, it would be really difficult.
You said if they win the SEC tournament?
No, if they win Saturday and then they win one game in the SEC tournament, I still think it's going to be hard to keep them out of a 1 seed at that point.
It's hard for me to imagine. Arizona has no quad one here. Like who in the so the Pac-12 has, 2 teams right now in the field. 2. I feel bad. Not only is the Pac-12 disappearing, they're going out with a whimper and hoops. I mean, Arizona's really good. Like they can't even really do anything in their conference tournament. Who is the other team, by the way? Because I know it's not USC or UCLA.
This is your area.
I know. I'm like, who the heck is – I don't even know who the other Pac-12 team – they better hope they play that team in their conference tournament. I'll tell you that much. But, yeah, I just – Arizona's had a lead, but the resume is starting to really tilt the other way toward Tennessee with a clear edge now.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll take more of your thoughts on Tennessee winning the SEC regular season championship. Also, Lionel Messi in town tonight, taking on Nashville SC. Some more fan outrage yesterday. We'll get to that. We'll get to the matchup itself. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Thursday morning. Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025 on our phone and text lines, which are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Predators assistant coach Todd Richards will be with us on the program here at 7:15. We're going to get into the NHL trading deadline, which had a lot of stuff going on yesterday. We'll get into that beginning in the 7 o'clock hour, so looking forward to that. Right now, taking your thoughts on the Vols winning the SEC regular season championship, and, of course, a big one tonight for Nashville SC as Lionel Messi and Inter Miami come to town as well. We'll get into that here in just a few minutes. Joe, final thoughts on Tennessee winning the SEC. I was reminded of this again last night, and I think everybody's going to focus in on Dalton Connect, which is – I get it. But I was reminded once again last night, and I didn't think he played that great last night, but just the subtle little plays that Ziegler makes is such a difference for this team heading into the tournament, which they didn't have a year ago. And look, I'm not saying that if Ziegler was healthy a year ago that they're, going to the Final Four and they're, competing for a national championship. But he's come back, he's obviously healthy, and he's gotten better. And he is such a weapon for them out there. And again, there are nights where he only scores 9 or 10 or 12, and he's not blowing you away with the scoring. But just the passing, the defense, the whole package, he's so important to what they do out there. And everybody's going to focus in on Connect, and I get it. They should. He's their best player. But Ziegler has been unbelievable for them this year.
Yeah, no, he really has. And, the South Carolina loss, Ziegler was like over 6, and that was still early. I mean, it was January. He's better, I feel like in the last, month, 6 weeks or so, it's like, oh, now he's past way past the ACL stuff, and he's even become a better player. Here and there, he'll launch up a heat check or, maybe, have a turnover or whatever, gets a little bit. He's not perfect, but, he's one of the best point guards in college basketball. And, if he was 4 inches taller, when he gets by people, which he does with ease, he'd also be finishing a lot more. But he also gets that limitation, so he uses it to set people up and probe. And he's a really, really smart player and a really good player. And again, it's like you got the point guard, you got the star scorer, and then Jonas Adu, who actually last night at times I thought didn't play great, still had a big game. I think 14-9. And he had a bad game first time against South Carolina. So they got him too. And those three that's where you start. Like every game you expect those three to give you a certain amount of production and good play. And then, a guy like Meshack, again, comes off late and makes a couple huge defensive plays. I know the South Carolina fans were furious. And I thought at first maybe he fouled Cooper on the three. But he did it. He avoided him. So they got the stopper, the point guard, the big man, another big man, scorer, the role players who could be coaches on the floor. Vescovy's over there drawing stuff up on the board, all that stuff. They got a lot going for them.
Joe, the greatest soccer player in the world is in our city today. They are taking on Nashville SC tonight, and it's going to be, I think, a challenge for SC in this game. Number one, it would be a challenge anyway if everybody was healthy. Sam Surridge isn't going to play. And it doesn't sound like Hani Mukhtar is going to play either. Now, Gary Smith was a little less committed to the Mukhtar part of this, so maybe there's a chance Mukhtar could get out there and play tonight. But clearly he will not be at 100% if he does. And, look, you need all hands on deck when you're taking on Inter Miami and Lionel Messi and company. So going to be a big challenge for Nashville SC tonight to try to contain him and get a result in this game. Meanwhile, you have the fans still upset with the way the ticketing situation has gone down, and Nashville SC released a statement yesterday about their supporters section. So there's the supporters section, and they've sold seated supporters section areas where basically the premise is when you buy tickets in these areas, you're not supposed to have opposing teams' colors or be able to cheer for the opposing team,
which is so weird. But yes,
it is what they do.
It's soccer.
So
yes.
They released a statement yesterday, and I'll just read it real quick. This came from Nashville SC. No opposing team jerseys or colors will be allowed in the supporters sections, which is sections 106 through 110 of Geodis Park for Thursday's Champions Cup match. Anyone entering this area in opposing jerseys or colors risks being removed from Geodis Park. Seated areas, which is sections 105 and 111 next to the supporters section, are now considered general seating and were mistakenly labeled seated supporters section. Opposing jerseys and colors will be allowed in the seated sections as well as other seated areas of the stadium, and it goes on to kind of explain the policies after that. Ends it with say, "We apologize for any confusion that may have been caused here," and the fans are livid. Man, they're mad that the seated supporters section is now allowing what I'm sure will be lots of messy jerseys and Inter Miami fans in that one tonight, and they basically think that Nashville SC is making this up and that they're just trying to do another big money grab here.
Just selling out to to open up the Well,
it's been an interesting week on the Nashville SC supporters and fan base section of this.
It has been. So we had the argument on Jared versus Joe. Is it bad business apart from the supporter thing? But just I guess it's tied together. But just the ticket prices in general, right? This is another one of those in-season tournaments, so it's an extra game. It's the CONCACAF Champions Cup quarterfinal. So it's an extra game. It's not so you buy season tickets. This is not on the schedule. You win your way to this game, right? Is it bad business? Is it bad business to ratchet up prices like this when a guy like Lionel Messi is coming to town? Did Corey Curtis really do that?
I don't know, but I hope so.
Carlos
Messi. Jared found that pretty funny yesterday. I don't know that I've seen Jared laugh like that before.
He did. He was chortling even though he had just taken another L. Hold this L and laugh your ass off, Jared.
Is it bad business? Look, my position on this has pretty much been, all right, do I love it for the season ticket holders? No. Do I understand it from the club point of view? Yes. And like you said, it's not a game on the season ticket members' schedule. It's an additional game. So they've had the first basically right of refusal to this thing. So honestly, I have not had a huge problem with the pricing part of this because, I mean, it's messy and a lot of people are doing this, okay? And we knew that this was going to be the case to some degree when he came to the MLS. I will say the supporter section stuff the other day, even though, quite frankly, like I find the idea of, well, you can't sit here because you're wearing the other team's jersey to be pretty stupid.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. So if that's going to be what it is, like the idea of them coming out with a statement at the end of the day yesterday and like, oh, well, it was mistakenly labeled. It's like, really? It was on your website.
Right.
So that's a little fishy to me.
That seems a little, that's a little wonky. Yeah. But so like 4 to 5 times, and I said this on Jared's show, it's like 4 to 5 times sounds terrible because that was how it was set up, you know, is ratchet, making prices 4 to 5 times the price. And like if it's 4 to 5 times like Titans tickets, okay, well now you're talking about $300, I mean, the tickets are very affordable, in general. So 4 to 5 times sounds worse than it is than like an $80 increase. $80 increase is nothing to sneeze at. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I don't know. It's just not surprising to me, I mean, I feel like when MLS got messy, I think everybody should have realized that clubs individually were going to leverage that to their benefit when they had an opportunity. And now Gentry wrote an interesting column in the Tennessean, pointing out, like I will say, like last year when it built up to the Messi coming here, it was huge. And it was a different time of year too. There was less going on elsewhere.
Sure.
I mean, there's a huge Preds game tonight. So what if it's not completely filled to the brim tonight?
Oh, there are fans talking about walking out. Like I've seen
doing the show up and then walk out, which I know we see in Premier League stuff.
I mean, I don't know if they're going to do it or not. I can tell you a lot of Nashville SC fans that I know are very mad about the way this thing has gone down. Which I get it. I don't necessarily totally agree with it, but I get it. If you're a season ticket holder, I understand the outrage. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Brad. Brad, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Hopefully you can hear me well. I'm trying to mute my radio here.
You're good.
So season ticket holder myself, I'm also no dummy. I tend to not have an issue with it. We do get first option before they're released to the public at a reduced rate. I understand that, we've got to make money and you got to get while the iron's hot. So myself, not a huge hater, as you will, of the policy. Do I wish it was cheaper? Absolutely. Do I want to pay more? No, not really. But did I? Yes. Because I want to see Messi, in town. I did not go last year. So, I get it. I'm not going to not go because of that. And I understand that the team's got to make the money while they can. So, that's, my 2 cents. But we do get a reduced rated option before it even hits the street. And I don't know what that rate was. I didn't go back and check to see how it compared. But, I bought my seats. And it, as Joe mentioned, it's not a part of the it's not a part of your regular season package. Right. You know that when you sign up for seats. So.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Brad. Appreciate it. I mean, that's kind of the way I view it. But that is, I can tell you, that's not the way a lot of the fan base views it. They're Nashville SC's in one right now with their fan base.
So what you're telling me is everybody except Brad is walking out tonight? Is that right? Brad's going to
Brad,
be
enjoy
alone?
the game.
The Brad section?
Brad, there's a personal meet and greet with Lionel Messi out there. How we doing?
Could you do the riff too, Brad?
That'd be great. Also, so resident fan as well for myself, and I have seats this season. The prorated price that I got for this game, and I didn't take them because I'm covering the hockey game, but the price for my seats for this game for the pair was $192.
And okay, and
what's
what's the normal price?
I mean, I haven't even looked after
you
that.
Just got you
Those
just
were
throwing
mine.
You're just throwing
but
you're making it rain all over town. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Well, I didn't buy them. I don't want to be that guy that buys them and tries to flip them. Like, I just don't want to be that guy.
You didn't resell them, is what you're saying.
No, I think I would do that later on for sure.
Right, but you don't know what your season tickets cost?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. For my whole season, it was $700 and some change. So when people have said it's half the price of that, yeah, I mean, in certain seats, yeah, and in some cases, I bet people are selling them for about $1,000 too.
700 some for how many games?
Oh my gosh, like I haven't even counted, to be honest, Joe. It's a long season. They play until October, right?
Before the show ends, I want you to do the math on per game ticket as compared to this, so we can have exact numbers. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Coming up next, it's time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst.
You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. Believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle, it's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It's time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Okay. My best, I got to go with the Tennessee men's basketball team. And I know I'm taking a little bit of a liberty.
GP Joe.
That's right. Taking a little bit of a liberty, including the Auburn game last week. But, basically in an 8-day span, they come back with this crazy win over Auburn. Dalton Connect with 39. They go into Alabama, an amazing atmosphere, game day, primetime Saturday night, number one offense in the country, completely stifle that offense. Without a bucket for 9 minutes and 3 seconds, win that game, and then they just lock it up last night to win the SEC outright. Just a championship team, just a great team, a great Tennessee team in any sport, and the rest of this month is going to be a ton of fun. My worst in sports, Darren Ravel.
Okay.
I don't know Darren personally, but he has a lot of interesting stuff. He covers the business of sport. So I think, there's a lot of interesting stuff there. When Caitlin Clark declared that she was going to the NBA,
WNBA.
Yeah, sorry, WNBA. Well, are we sure?
I don't know.
Yes. When Caitlin Clark declared she's going to the WNBA, Darren. My God, I got Dalton on the brain. Darren
Carlos
Ravel.
Messi.
Carlos Ravel is really angering me. He tweeted like she's taking this huge pay cut, right? And then everybody ratioed it, including me. I think I quote tweeted him and said, "Stop embarrassing yourself." This is someone who covers sports, business.
Yeah.
She did not take money from the collective. Her money is all from endorsements that I promise you will continue. She's got Jake from State Farm at her games, bro.
Yeah.
She's got. And and then yesterday he triples down on his stupidity. It's like, Darren, all these people are showing you. Here's news reports that detail she's not getting collective money at Iowa. She's getting her own endorsements because they are so freaking rich. She's a millionaire. Shut up, Darren. That's my worst in sports.
Oh, and by the way, she's going to actually be paid in the WNBA. There is that too.
Well, right.
There'll be a
Well, his
salary
whole thing was basically like her endorsements. I guess at some point somebody reported at $800,000. And her WNBA salary was like $80,000. Like, cutting, but it's like, but these endorsements are going to still be there. This is not Iowa collective money, and they keep telling him, and he keeps tweeting about it. Stop it. Sorry,
Nick Keiser, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
I love having a rant before the actual rant. There you go. Good job, Joe. My best would be the Predators streak. I liked that they were able to band all together, and it was fun to see that one start in St. Louis for sure. But Jared taking credit for it, I could do the same, but who cares? So the Preds ultimately, they lost in overtime, but hey, you know what? That streak is a great one to have right now for the time of the season where we thought this team could have been sellers, so good for them. The worst, and we've kind of touched on this already, but Ryan Johansson being moved on by the Colorado Avalanche. He's also on waivers currently after that move. So I know that we'll dive into that a little bit later for sure. But, yeah, not looking good for Joey. And this last year's been very rough for a guy that also got hurt last, February, right? Late
February
January?
or March, yeah, 1 and 2. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So not a good year for Joey. So we'll see how it pans out for him.
My best thing in sports is the NHL trade deadline. It fired up yesterday. Johansson was a part of it, but there are a lot of moves made yesterday. We're going to get more specifically into that coming up here in just a few minutes. But it kind of feels like once it gets rolling, it's wave after wave after wave at the deadline. And I love the NHL trade deadline. I love the NBA trade deadline. There's a lot of things that happen every year. So really excited over the next couple of days to see what all goes down at the NHL trading deadline. My worst thing in sports, just some of the reaction to the combine stuff. Like now people are just picking apart Keon Coleman. And look, I have no idea how good Keon Coleman is going to be at the NFL level, but I mean, the guy is 6'4" and ran a 4.6 40, and now people are all over 4.6. I mean, that guy might as well not even line up in the league. 4.6.
Jared wants no part of him.
nobody
Go away.
And I was like, okay. I mean, I get it. You'd like him to see him run a little faster. He is also 6'4", so I'd keep that in mind. And last year, he caught 50 balls for 658 yards and had 11 touchdowns. Is he going to be a good player in the NFL? I have no idea, but I still probably would rely a little bit more on the tape than the 4.6 40.
And all the other testing, which is actually off the charts. Yeah. Jerry Rice ran a 4.6. Just saying. That's a good one.
Joe Rexrode says Keon Coleman will be Jerry Rice in the NFL. Headline from today.
Exactly. He was at, by the way, Keon Coleman was back at Michigan State in a Steven Izzo jersey last night. Yeah, that's good for him. Brady had a good one. Cody Glass, as his best. Good. And then worst, a goal-scoring stanchions. That's a good worst.
That was good.
Yeah.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, we'll get into the NHL trading deadline. A lot of trades being made yesterday. Will the Predators get involved soon? Or are they going to stand pat? We'll get into that. Predators assistant coach Todd Richards will join us at 7:15 with the Preds taking on the Buffalo Sabres tonight. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. We'll be joined by Predators assistant coach Todd Richards coming up here in about 12 minutes at 7:15. So looking forward to that. Preds taking on the Buffalo Sabres tonight. And the NHL trade deadline is tomorrow. A lot of those moves getting underway yesterday, though. A lot of moves going on in the NHL starting basically yesterday afternoon. It all kind of kicked off with Vladimir Tarasenko being traded from the Ottawa Senators to the Florida Panthers. So the Panthers, who are currently the best team in the league, loading up with Tarasenko. And then Colorado got Sean Walker from the Philadelphia Flyers, and as a part of that trade, Ryan Johansson goes from Colorado to the Flyers, a conditional first-round pick coming back to Philadelphia as well. And Johansson immediately put on waivers. So Flyers acquired Johansson, the $4 million cap hit that he had with Colorado. Remember, the Predators are still paying half of his contract. So Preds have a $4 million cap hit of a retention spot with Johansson. And he plays in Colorado for basically a little bit over a half season. They ship him out. And now the report is if he does not get picked up on waivers, which he probably won't at that cap hit, he's going to be in the American Hockey League playing for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. So a very interesting spot for Ryan Johansson right now.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, it's tough. And, Nick talked about it last time. I mean, it's too bad, for him. And I don't know. Adrian Dater said something about something, whatever. But I know some Preds fans have, but it's not allowed, right? It's not allowed.
Well, it's not allowed, and
it wouldn't happen anyway.
Zero consideration.
Yeah, zero consideration. Wouldn't happen anyway. Bad idea. But just to be clear, it's not even something they could do anyway. So, yeah, it's interesting because we talked about it earlier in the season. He was playing well.
He started off good, and then it basically cratered on him after that.
You think his career might be over in the NHL?
I think it might be. I think he's still good enough to play in the NHL. But right now, I mean, the problem with him is, they brought him in at that rate to try him out to be their second-line center, and it just didn't work. I mean, he's a playmaker. That's his biggest strength, and right now he can't make plays. We talked about him winning the Cy Young earlier this year. At one point he had 10 goals and 3 assists or whatever it was. He's not creating offense. So when you're not creating offense, especially on that team, that's a little concerning. So, I think he's still an NHL player.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe.
His contract is prohibitive.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody's signing. He's put on waivers. It's a $4 million cap hit if you pick him up. Nobody's picking him up for $4 million, I don't think. Yeah. So, right now, I think for the rest of this year anyway, he may just be in the American Hockey League. And then we'll see it. After that, he's got 1 year left on the contract, so we'll see what that looks like. But I don't know. I think he might be, for the time being, done in the league.
Well, as much as we cover the AHL, we could be talking about a lot of Rad Joe this year, when it comes back around, huh?
Could be. Milwaukee better watch out. Just saying.
Start scouting them now, Milwaukee.
A couple other big moves. Colorado also making a big move right after that with Buffalo. They traded for Casey Middlestat, who is now going to be their second-line center. They sent Bowen Byram, who Tommy Novak turned inside out the other day against Colorado, to the Sabres. Bowen Byram, kind of a stud prospect defenseman who was a part of their cup run a couple years ago, and it hadn't really worked out for him this year. So they sent him back to Buffalo, a building block for Buffalo, and Casey Middlestat coming to Colorado. Edmonton loading up yesterday. They got Adam Hemrick and Sam Carrick from the Ducks, so adding to their roster. The Rangers adding Alex Winberg from Seattle. And then there's Vegas, who somehow always finds their way in these discussions. So they traded for Anthony Mantha 2 days ago on Tuesday. And then yesterday they acquired Noah Hannafin in a 3-team deal with the Flames and the Flyers. So Hannafin, who's a good defenseman, kind of a stay-at-home type of defenseman, now going to Vegas. They're working on a longer-term deal with him. And the reports are that Vegas might not be done. They might be looking to add another forward at the deadline.
No cap. They got no cap.
I mean, they've Mark Stone's been hurt, so he's been on
the LTIR,
baby. And there's they put Alec Martinez on injured reserve yesterday too. So Vegas is clearly gaming the system a little bit. And we've talked about this before. I remember
just like
in 2015, Patrick Kane got hurt for Chicago, was out the second half of the year. Then magically he was ready to go by game 1 of the playoffs against the Predators, and they had added to their payroll. Tampa has done this.
Tampa's done it. Oh, yeah.
You know, Vegas is now doing it. So, I mean, look, if the loophole is there and you figure out a way to do it, knock yourself out. I mean, look, I can tell you right now, like it sounds like Gabriel Landeskog, who's been out all year and basically all of last year for Colorado, might be ready to go by the playoffs.
Oh, boy.
They're going to do the same thing. I mean, they're going to roll him out there for game 1 if he's ready to go. So there's a little bit of a loophole right now that it feels like Vegas is taking advantage of.
Well, when you see other teams do it, you know. How about, did you mention Tarasenko?
Yeah.
How about Tarasenko to the Panthers?
Yeah. It's an interesting move. Like Tarasenko.
Senators retained 50%.
Like everybody hears Vladimir Tarasenko and they think, oh man, okay. Like he's not what he used to be.
No.
He's still he's a good player.
He got 60 points, man.
Yeah, he's a good player. And look, that team has been. It's interesting because they've got good offensive talent. They hadn't been able to stop anybody all year. Like he scored 17 goals this year. He's got 41 points in 57 games. He's a good player. So I think he slots into them perfectly because you could put him either on the second or third line, and that's a pretty good guy to have on your second or third line.
Yeah, so
they're loaded.
So these all count as deadline deals? Is that right? Are we counting these?
I count these.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just wasn't sure. I know you guys are sticklers on what counts as a deadline deal or not. So this is a lot.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Is today going to be as wild?
I don't know. I mean, Jay Gensel is still out there.
He's the big one.
That's going to happen at some point, you would think. I mean, there are moves out there left to be made. Tyler Toffoli from New Jersey could be in play. So there's still a lot of moves out there that could happen and that are out there on the table. But it just kind of all came wave after wave yesterday. So, you know, some of the big moves have already been made. Typically when you see this happen and moves start to go down, that's when general managers start to get a little desperate because they don't want to miss out on their guy.
Yeah.
So I would assume we're probably going to see a few more big ones today would be my guess. And then, of course, I mean, we know we will Friday when the deadline comes up and teams, I mean, it's basically like, give me your best offer, give me what you'll take as a return, and we're either going to do this or we're not going to do it. So Friday creates a little bit of pressure by itself. But I think when you see it start to get rolling yesterday like it did, I think you'll see some more today go through.
A lot of people asking about LTIR on the text line.
Yeah,
I mean, back when the last time when Tampa Bay did this, who the heck was that? That they
was Kucherov.
It was Kucherov. Yeah, people are like, what can they do here? They should do something, right?
I mean, it's tough because sometimes, I mean, there's supposed to be like an investigation of some sort into this, and like you got to actually be hurt.
Yeah.
Now, you can
but
be
you
hurt,
can be hurt,
and you could also be ready to play and then not come back
exactly.
when you're ready to play.
Like the whole thing is like you got to investigate and then check up daily and make sure they're still hurt.
Like I have no doubt that Mark Stone is hurt in Vegas. Now, can Mark Stone, let's say the playoffs, I don't even know when the playoffs start this year, the specific date, but let's just say they started like April the 11th. Could Mark Stone be ready to play by like April the 2nd? Probably. Is he going to do that? Probably not. And that's I don't know how you enforce that, but that's what it is. It's like, you know, when Kucherov was out, or like I think Kane's a good example too. In 2015, Kane was ready to go and looked 100% in game 1 of the playoffs. You telling me like 3 days before that in the regular season he couldn't have played? Probably could have.
Right. And so for people asking what it is, I mean, basically you remove them from the payroll.
You remove their salary.
You remove their salary.
You get like cap space freed up.
Yeah.
So
it's, I mean, yeah. I don't know.
It's a little fishy, but right now it kind of is what it is. So,
and especially when a team then wins it, you know,
right.
which
has
it
happened
takes advantage, right? You know, like yeah.
Tampa's done.
I mean, it's not like it's not like you're out there like trying to fake injuries to make this happen, but you are prolonging it. I would presume that
there's
at times, and that's
no question.
That's not great.
Coming up next, we'll be joined by Predators assistant coach Todd Richards. Preds back in action tonight, taking on the Buffalo Sabres. We'll get into that with him. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Make sure you tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as Vanderbilt women's basketball takes on Florida in the SEC women's basketball tournament. Pre-game at 7:15, tip-off at 7:30. Make sure you're tuned in for that. Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Hoping to be joined by Predators assistant coach Todd Richards here shortly. Preds back in action, taking on the Buffalo Sabres tonight. So, though we mentioned it, a ton of trades going on. Will there be more today? And will the Nashville Predators get involved in the trade deadline? That's kind of the big question around here is now that the deadline is kind of kicked into full gear here, what's going on with Barry Trotz behind the scenes? What could the Predators do here over the next couple of days? And I guess there's some intrigue on both sides of things, Joe. I mean, the buying part of this, maybe it's a small buy for the Predators, or the selling, like the Alex Carriers of the world. Somebody look at Yakov Trenin and say, you know what, we need a third line, kind of a bruising forward, and we'll give you a third or fourth round pick for Yakov Trenin. Do you do that if you're Barry Trotz? I mean, it's kind of a couple of different sides of things that are interesting. And then there's, of course, the retention spot that we talked about yesterday. With a lot of these moves going, like to me, if you're going to get in on that, better get in on it if you're Barry Trotz right now to use one of those spots to get a significant pick back your way.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. I think it'd be – I guess at this point almost a disappointment if it doesn't materialize, right? What about anything else? If there's no – change to this roster either way, what's the reaction of Preds fans?
I think they'll largely be okay with it. Largely. Now, I do think. Look, if you're sitting here today and you're saying, you know what, you could probably get a second round pick for Alex Carrier, you need to do it. I understand that. If they traded Carrier today and they got a second round pick for him, I'd totally understand it. I'd say, okay, yeah, that's a good move. If they end up going through this and basically doing nothing, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think most of the fan base would say, all right, you won 8 games in a row. You're on a 9-game point streak. At least you're not giving up future assets, especially first and second round picks to go add to the group. I think most of the fan base could probably live with basically standing pat.
What if you just took the value of, let's say just internally they believe, look, Carrier-Lauzon's been a really good pairing. Don't want to disrupt that. He's been solid all year. So we believe that might end up actually being the difference in making a playoff run. So take that on one hand and a second-round pick on the other hand.
It's a good question. I would probably lean second-round pick, but I think a lot of the fan base would probably lean the other way. I still think they should collect as many assets as they possibly can. I don't think they're going to do that.
That's just one asset, though.
That's
one asset versus,
But it's a significant one. It's a second-round one.
Sure.
But if you believe that Carrier, I guess, is that important to your playoff run, then that's probably worth more than a second-round pick. I don't know if I believe that. I think he's a good player.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's what they think.
Right.
But I do feel like it's just. It's in particular Lauzon emerging as a good player this year.
Sure.
They play well together.
They do. Yeah. And look, last night was not their greatest night, or Tuesday night was not their greatest game, but for the most part, they've been pretty good this year. And look, Carrier's a good player. I had big question marks about him coming into the year. Him and Fabro were kind of in the same boat. I've always thought Carrier was a little bit better of a player than Fabro is, but I think both of them have responded pretty well this year given the circumstances that they've been in. I think it's worth asking, is Carrier, what's he asking for with this contract? And is he a long-term part of your defense? I think could go either way on that. If they signed him, do I think it's a bad move? No. I think he's a good player. But if they looked at it and said, you know what, we like Alex Carrier, but we like Spencer Stasny more, and we want him to play higher up in the lineup, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
I think Carrier he's not an irreplaceable player. Let's put it that way.
Right. Sure. Yeah. It's just. I do. I am okay with what's going on influencing you a little bit, but just not big stuff. You can't take big stuff away, take it off the table, right? It doesn't match up. Like overall, making the playoffs, even having a chance to do something in the playoffs, the way they've played lately, you can't rule that out. To me, it doesn't match up with the haul you would get for UC Saros. Sorry to keep bringing it up.
Right. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Larry. Larry, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Good, man.
Great.
Hey, my thing is, do we think this team can actually win the Cup? I don't believe this team can win the Cup. So that's why I think you take the trades. If you can get a good trade in for a second-round pick for Carrier, or maybe something comes along with Saros, maybe you take those picks because, listen, this team ain't going to win the Cup this year or maybe not even next year.
Thanks for the call, Larry. I appreciate it. I mean, no, they're not a Cup contender this year. Now, I mean, we've seen crazy things happen in the playoffs, and teams get hot and all those things. So certainly you can't ever completely rule something like that out. But no, I mean, they're not Vegas. They're not Colorado. They're not Dallas. So the odds are if they make the playoffs, it's going to be one and done, and you're in and out. So I think there's a little bit of, if you're Barry Trotz, because ultimately his opinion on this is what matters, I think there has to be a little bit of realism in the back of your mind of, like, not getting too caught up in the moment. Like, I think you react to the information that's in front of you. And he talked the other day about, the team has responded as well as they possibly could have responded to the circumstance that they have. And there is some level of rewarding the team for that. And I understand that as general manager. I do think you can't allow yourself to get too caught up in the moment either way, when things are going good or when things are going bad. So, I mean, is there a scenario where they could do both? Like, he kind of brought that up on his own the other day of, like, there's a situation where maybe somebody offers me a second-round pick for somebody, I take it, and then I go spend a second-round pick to get somebody else. Like, that could happen too. I mean, there's a ton of options that he has. So I guess with the options that are on the table, I guess I'd be surprised if they totally stood pat, but also, like, weighing the pros and cons of that of, does it make sense to go acquire a second-round pick to then just turn around and spend a second-round pick to go get somebody else? Like, I don't know. A lot of that depends on who specifically the player is that you're talking about.
Yeah, and again, it's like I'm down on the rental. Yeah, who is it? I mean, what did someone just throw on here? Fabro for Toffoli?
I don't think that's going to work.
That's probably not going to happen. If things went completely crazy, Saros for Bedard. Yeah, there you go. Saros for Bedard. I assume you're joking.
Yeah, I do that.
Maddie's joking, right? See, I have to. I'm bad. I'm bad at people trolling me, and then I'm not. I'm like, wait a minute. Do I need to yell at you, or are you just messing around?
One thing I do need to bring up, though.
The entire franchise for Bedard?
Brandon on the text line said, did anyone think the 2017 Preds were Cup contenders?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. Before the season,
yeah,
they were picked by many people to go to the Western Conference Final, Stanley Cup Final. Now, as the season went on, no. I mean, their first-round matchup against Chicago, pretty much everybody thought they were going to lose. So I guess it depends on which way you view that. But.
Yeah, right. Like when the playoffs came, no. And I thought they'd get smoked by the Blackhawks. And as it turns out, they ended the Blackhawks' reign. But, yes, that was a much more talented team, much more complete team. They had just won a playoff series and taken the next one to the Game 7. They were a game away from the conference final. That was still the prime of a team that conceivably can be a contender. That's not this.
Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Predators assistant coach Todd Richards. Todd, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Sorry for the late phone call this morning.
That's okay. All
That's
good.
fine.
We appreciate it. So taking on the Sabres tonight, and Todd, we were just talking about the winning streak and what it's been like around here lately to watch this all go down. What's it been like from your perspective to watch the kind of the turnaround with your group and putting things all together over this last 8 or 9 game streak here?
Well, I was just talking with some friends the other day, and you talk about the difference of between winning and losing, and your whole day is affected by it, even days afterwards. And I guess that's the life in sports that we've chosen, and that's kind of the reaction you get a lot of times. So this run that we've been on and the way that we've been playing has been a lot of fun. It's been great to, obviously, a lot easier to come to the rink, a lot easier to do work and get work done, and you can see it in the players and the confidence and how it's grown, and the confidence going into every game that we're going to win the game. So on the flip side of that, every team goes through it. You have these good pushes. You have some lags in the season where things aren't going your way. Those are the ups and downs that I think every team goes through, and you need to go through. And right now we're at a good a point in our season where we want to be playing our best hockey, and I think the guys have done that.
Specifically, last game, Todd, did the stanchion goal like have a negative effect? Like what was, first of all, how crazy was that, and all the things you've seen in this game, and was that hard to overcome?
You know what? I was actually, just again going through the game this morning and watching certain clips, and probably about 15 minutes ago, I just watched that clip, and for me, I was interested because I didn't remember how our next shift went after that, and I liked the way that we responded to it. It wasn't a great shift where we went down the ice and we dominated or anything like that, but we didn't look rattled by it. And I think you can get rattled by it. And I think sometimes, when things aren't going good, I think that's something that could really rattle you. I think, but because maybe we were playing good and, we've won a lot of games and we're finding ways to win, that it was, I think everyone just felt like, oh, that's just a bad bounce, an unlucky bounce, but we'll be okay because of it. So I have seen that before. It's not the first time. It is weird, and you watch the angles and you can sit there, it's probably, like a hole in one in golf. You can probably sit there and shoot that puck 1,000 times, and to get it to do that is that 1 out of 1,000 times.
Todd, obviously learning a new system this year and the process that goes into that with new players and a new team, do you feel like the players have fully grasped what you guys and Andrew Burnett have asked them to do, and you're seeing kind of the results and the fruit of that in the way that they've played lately?
Yeah, I do. And, you can even go back with, where were we, 5-10, I think, at the start of the year, and we're 35-25 now. So, if you do the math, that's what, 30-15, something like that. So I have seen that, been around the game enough to understand. And, when you're our new coach coming in, it takes a little bit of time, and there's going to be a lot of times a little bit of struggle at the start of the year. Just grasping that and teams just coming together, not understanding their roles yet. There's, I'm trying to think of the term, but storming. There's 3 different phases, and that's one of the phases is storming. And nobody kind of knows where they fit on the team, and you're still trying to figure out the system. So there's a bit of an adjustment period. And I think since that point, you can look and 30-15. If you're able to do that, that's a really good clip that you're going at. So I think the players have grasped it. It's a fun way to play for a player. It's certainly a fun way to watch the game as a fan. And as a coach too, it's a fun way to coach, about playing fast and wanting the puck, and we're able to do that. So you can see a difference in how we played, I think, last year and how we're playing this year. And just, puck control and just getting up and down the ice.
Obviously, big moment over the weekend for Cody Glass. But in general, what have you seen from him recently, Todd?
Well, you know what? It's always everyone has to find their way. And I think Cody would probably be the first guy to say, listen, this year hasn't gone exactly the way that I wanted. But he's a guy who shows up to work. He's a good professional. There's been nights where he hasn't been in the lineup and he hasn't been a distraction. He's there to support his teammates, and that's never easy. You don't want players to be happy sitting out, and no players around here are happy sitting out. But the good thing, and we can go down the list with our players and going through this, but he has been one of them. That has been out of the lineup. He comes in and he works, trying to make himself better. And it's nice to see, guys put in the time and some of the struggles, the ups and downs that they go throughout the year, in the game of hockey, but to see them start to have success. And you can see how important it is to these guys. And you can see, and he, obviously you could see the reaction after the game and how he felt about it. And those are the things you love I think as a fan, somebody that's just watching, when it becomes important to these guys and how special it is to these guys, because sometimes you think that it's just there for other reasons. And you can see that it meant a lot to him. And when it means a lot to somebody like that, obviously it means a lot to our organization, means a lot to everybody else around him.
Todd, last thing for you. You guys are taking on the Sabres tonight. We were just going through kind of the defense core here and the way that they've played lately. How important specifically has the Carrier-Lozon pairing been to the way you guys have played and what you guys want to do out there this year?
You know what? They've been great. They really have. And then they like each other. They like playing with each other. So it's been fun for me to watch too, because I've been here. I've watched Alex, for 4 years now, just kind of come up and kind of grow into the player that he has become. And then Jeremy, much the same. We acquired him through a trade with I think it was Seattle, and that was maybe 2 years ago. And just seeing these guys develop and kind of establish themselves in the league and they're two. I'm not going to say opposite players, but they're different. They're different in how they look. They're different in how they play, but they fit really well together. And I think both of them being from Quebec, both of them speaking French, and they certainly speak a lot of English too. But I think they have this bond between the two, and you can see that in how they play on the ice. So they complement each other very, very well in how they play the game. And they've been a huge, there's a team is always a puzzle, and some pieces are bigger than other pieces. And their pieces certainly have grown this year, just with their roles on the team and what they've been able to do and provide our team throughout the season. So it's been fun to watch, and hopefully there's more. There's more down the road from them, and getting them better and having them contribute more and more, so our team can get better.
Well, Todd, really appreciate your time this morning. Good luck coming up to tonight against Buffalo, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Predators assistant coach Todd Richards, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We'll react. Take your thoughts to the Preds, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up here in just a few minutes.
I want to apologize in advance.
I can promise you're not going to want to miss.
I
Looking forward to that.
I don't want to do this.
But you are.
We keep being forced to do this.
And it's going to happen here in just a few minutes. Looking forward to that. Coming up here at the 7:45-ish. Appreciate Todd Richards for calling in. Preds taking on the Sabres tonight. Taking your thoughts on the Predators, 615-737-1025. I do want to touch on something. Glenn from Greenbrier texting in, says the goal of the franchise is to make the playoffs. I thought Trotz might change that. I don't know that he has. I hear this a lot, and I understand why it comes up. Because it did feel like towards the end of the David Poile tenure that they were doing everything they could possibly do to just try to get in, and probably delayed this sell-off that they did last year. Probably did it about 2 years too late. So I think we could all agree with that.
Which happens, but yeah, it's fair, absolutely.
Yeah, like I think we can all probably agree with that. Now, that also doesn't mean that like every time moving from here forward that you're not like a top 2 team in your division, that you're like, well, playoffs. Who cares about that? Just sell everybody off. Like there is some value in making the playoffs. And look, if this team makes the playoffs, like I don't think that's a bad thing.
Right.
Like they're the players, and we've talked about this before. You make the decisions that you make in the offseason, and that's what it is. Like Barry Trotz brought in O'Reilly and all these different guys, and there were even people at the time that said, okay, you got rid of Duchesne, you freed up all this cap space, you got a lot of young guys in Milwaukee, and you took some of their spots by bringing in Nyquist and O'Reilly and Shen and all these guys. And by the way, for the most part, it's those guys have been really good and have been productive. So I don't love the idea of holding on too long to like they did a couple years ago and not selling off probably when they should. But I also dismiss out of hand like this idea that, well, unless they've got all their ducks in a row and they've stockpiled a ton of assets and they're positioned to go be number 1 or number 2 in their division and be immediately a cup contender, that you just totally discount the idea of making the playoffs. I don't think Barry Trotz is sitting there like, the only thing I care about is making the playoffs. It's the only thing I care about.
Yeah, I'd like just to answer Glenn in particular. I mean, the timeline changed, right? Like they reset the clock. They have a new era, and there is value. Don't discount the business value, but also don't discount the value of getting your young guys in playoff games. I mean, so once you start a season, you want to win. You want to win every game. And then I would definitely agree with don't mortgage the future for this team to make the playoffs.
100%.
But that's different than what we're talking about, I think, right? Again, if there's a ridiculous, outrageous deal that is what has come out of Barry Trotz's mouth to other GMs for UC Saros, and Tom Fitzgerald's like, you know what? Let's do it. Here, everything you asked for. And Barry Trotz's like, but the playoffs, I have a problem with that. I think you still have to have the big picture ahead of this team's playoff position. But short of that, you're trying to make the playoffs, of course.
Yeah, like every player in there and the coaching staff is trying to make playoffs. It is what it is.
Right, their job is to win.
Right. So, again, I just think sometimes you can go a little too far the other way too, right? Like everybody, I get it. Like the Predators, there's no question about it. They sold off like 2 years too late, and it is what it is.
Like Cam's like the mindset since '98 has been just get in and you never know. We're tired of getting in. We want to win it. Well, they built up a team that was good enough to win it. You talked about that team yesterday, Robby. That 06-07 team was absolutely and they've had other teams. They've built up teams. They got within 2 wins of winning it in 2017. So I mean, I don't think the mindset is the exact same since 1998, nor have the teams been the exact same.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports coming up to begin the 8 o'clock hour. NFL free agency begins next week. We'll get Charles's thoughts on that and how that could factor in with the Tennessee Titans. Coming up next, the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. And it could be spicy. I'll just go ahead and tell you. We'll get into that next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Why are you holding your hands like that?
Well, I'm trying to get a question in here.
Well, then ask the question. No, I'm just saying, like, you look ridiculous.
What's up? This is Scott Stapp from Creed, and you're listening to Robby and Rexrode on 102.5 The Game.
Thank you. That was just something for our sister station.
Okay. Did I say Rexrode right?
Rexrode.
Rexrode. Okay, let me do that again.
No worries.
What's up? This is Scott Stapp from Creed, and you're listening to Robby and Rexrode on 102.5 The Game.
It is time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode here on the program. We'll take your
that's
thoughts as
aging
always.
well. I mean, I like that more and more every time.
I do too. It's great stuff.
That's beautiful. Okay, well, that put me in a good mood. So let's
quickly get you out of that.
I don't want to do this. I don't want this segment to just be like, Jared throwing stuff at us. We throw stuff back at Jared. But sometimes, like, he just has to be corrected. So I'm going to do that calmly. Not going to scream or anything, but
don't believe you.
Well, we'll give some backstory. Last week's Jared versus Joe, which caused me to apologize the next day to Caroline. Caroline suggested that Marvin Harrison Jr.'s name, the fact that he's the son of Marvin Harrison, has something to do with like where he is, as a player, where he's evaluated. She mentioned the Heisman, and I lost it because. Hey, does anybody remember where Jeffrey Jordan? Do you remember Jeffrey Jordan in college basketball?
No.
Yeah, he played at Illinois. He's Michael Jordan's son. No one gives a crap. No one gives a crap. So that part of it, very infuriating. Apparently, Jared thinks that I got mad at her because she said Malik Neighbors was better than Marvin Harrison. No. I mean, I don't agree with that, but that's not the point. It's almost like the helmet scouting thing, too, but actually it makes me even madder. The helmet scouting. Ohio State's never had a good quarterback. Well, that's true. Woody Hayes, back when they ran the freaking single wing, didn't produce good NFL quarterbacks, so that matters now. Like, it's the same thing, this idea of there's plenty of children of great athletes who don't do a damn thing, and no one cares. Bronny James not going to do anything in the NBA next year, and he's not going to win the Naismith because he's LeBron James' kid. Okay?
That long fuse is running out.
I know. We haven't even gotten to what made me mad today. So I guess let's just play Jared from yesterday. Someone on the text line, thanks for bringing my attention to this, and we can just play this segment now.
With Jared versus Joe, Caroline and Joe got into it about Marvin Harrison versus Malik Neighbors, and then Robby and Joe the next day were like Beavis and Butthead, laughing at the idea that Malik Neighbors might be better than Marvin Harrison. And Mike Sando's piece in The Athletic where he talked to the 6 unnamed executives, all have quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, that's fine. But Marvin Jr. is not a slam dunk at 4. And that's because I think a lot of people are like me, and we think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is good. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is good. But you know what I don't think he is? Ian, did you ever watch the Fresh Prince back in the day?
Sure.
I do not think that he is all that in a bag of chips. I think he's fine. I don't think he's that good. Whereas for the last year, people have been like, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's just so incredible. He's just so. I'm going to be honest. I didn't even think Marvin Sr. was that good.
That is a great cherry on top right there. Oh, my God. Just an absolute avalanche of stupid takes. Just an absolute avalanche. But here, let me make it clear. I don't think like it's Marvin Harrison Jr. and then some massive Grand Canyon between Neighbors or Odunze. But the thing is, I'm not sure I don't like Odunze better than Neighbors. I'm not mad at you if you think one of those guys is better than Marvin Harrison Jr. I think you are downplaying Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's the best receiver. I think he's great. I think he's going to be great. The arguing about this is the point of the name and how that has anything to do with anything. But man, the fact that Jared just went, by the way, Marv Sr. wasn't very good either. Cherry on top. Actually, I'm not even mad. Like I'm happy. You bring us joy, Jared. Thank you.
Is his thought process for Marvin Harrison Sr. that I guess Peyton Manning made him? And he was like, well, he's played with Peyton Manning, so he can't be.
I don't know.
Peyton Manning made him great.
This was brought to. So I didn't even heard. I've only heard that clip, and boy, if that's any indication of the whole segment, what a juicy segment that was yesterday on the.
I just want to go through a 4-year stretch. I could go through more, but I'll just go through a 4-year stretch for Marvin Harrison Sr. from 1999 to 2002. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
99, 115 catches, 1,663 yards, 12 touchdowns. 2000, 102 catches, 1,413 yards, 14 touchdowns. 2001, 109 catches, 1,524 yards, 15 touchdowns. And 2002, 143 catches, 1,722 yards, and 11 touchdowns. I could go more, but that's just a 4-year stretch from 99 to 02.
Yeah, he was.
Peyton Manning was great, yes. Marvin Harrison was also great.
Yes, exactly. Both can be true. So he mentioned the Sando piece, by the way, and it is – so there's basically one GM. He interviewed 6 GMs, Sando did, and basically one of them was not fully sold, I guess, because Marvin Harrison wasn't like the consensus number 4 pick. But of the 6, 2 of them put him there. And he still was rated above the other receivers. And the only GM quoted said he's the most talented of the receivers. But, yeah, I'm not saying – I think it's a top 3, and that's the tier. I think that's fair to say, right? And I don't think there's a huge gap. Personally, I would take Marvin Harrison. I'm not going, you'd take Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors. What? I'm not – it's not the biggest deal in the world. The biggest deal in the world is – his dad, his name has something to do with it. My God.
I didn't even think Marvin Sr. was that good.
That's amazing. Do anybody know who Barry Sanders' kid is doing?
No.
He's a walk-on at Michigan State in basketball. He gets in when it's a 30-point game.
That's good.
How is he not the Doak Walker winner, even though he plays basketball? I don't know. That's the part. That's the take. That is just amazing. And the Marvin Harrison Sr. The other stuff, it's fine. We'll see.
Old Skippy has texted me. Yes, it's because he played with Peyton. Just like Edger and Reggie Wayne, Poley and Dwight Freeney and Dungy. They were all good, but they weren't that good. Peyton made everyone.
Wow. Okay.
There you go.
The takes keep flowing.
Did you watch him play?
I know. I mean, and that's what I say about Marvin Jr. too. Again, I love Malik Neighbors. He's really good. He's not Randy Moss, which is apparently Jared's comp. My God. Speaking of takes. But if you watch Marvin Harrison Jr. play, dude, he is unbelievable.
He's really good.
We'll see. I mean, it's a good top tier.
It is. Who's Beavis? Who's Butthead?
Well, I guess. I see. Really, you're more Butthead because Butthead kind of leads the discussion, and then Beavis is like, yeah. I guess that's me, right?
I'm proudly Butthead, I guess.
Okay, there you go. I'll be Beavis.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. We'll get his thoughts on the beginning of NFL free agency, which is right around the corner. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. NFL free agency beginning next week. And it's a very interesting time in the National Football League right now. To help us talk about that and more, we welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports on our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Charles, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. How you doing today?
We are really good. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. We heard you're a big fan of the Rex Rant. Rex Rant is becoming a part of your everyday listening habits.
I try to check in to see what Joe's irritated about. I'm actually with him on this one, though. I don't know why we're still doing this thing with Marvin Harrison Jr. Man, I don't even. You know what's funny? I'm at the combine, and Harrison Jr. blows off his meet and greet. It's not even meet and greet. He just had a pre-planned, a scheduled press appearance, right? He doesn't do that. Just like he didn't do anything else. And, you could see a lot of guys are irritated. They thought at least, we're going to get a chance to sit there and talk to him. And I was talking to a GM, and, he made a really good point where he's just like, of all the guys who sat out and didn't do anything, and he said, look, okay, you can gripe about the missed scheduled media appearance. Like, I get that. He said, but of everything else, he said, we've been watching this guy so closely for so long now. He's like, there's nowhere to go for him but down. Anything he does where someone else has some kind of edge on him is going to be perceived as slippage. So let's say he goes out and he runs a 4.540. People are going to look at him and go, oh my gosh, look at Worthy ran a 4.21, or Adunze ran this, or, go down the laundry list of the wide receivers all ran fast. They all ran in the 4.3s. Or, let's say he drops a pass in the gauntlet. Oh my God, Ladd McConkey was perfect in the gauntlet. Or this player was, he basically just said, we've gone to last year's pro day at Ohio State. We all stared at him instead of, all these other players we could have been looking at. We're buzzing about C.J. Stroud, but we're buzzing as much about Marvin Harrison Jr. So we've been waiting on this guy basically since his freshman season, his first, breakout year at Ohio State. And he's like, it's just, there's no good part of the process that doesn't create a conversation about how someone else is going to leapfrog him. So he's like, I understand. He said, it's just not a great process when you're a player that's locked into the top five the way that he is and has been for so long. After a while, people get sick of seeing him. And by the way, the people that are out there talking about him just being great because of Peyton Manning or whatever, go back to when Peyton Manning was getting drafted and go back to the conversation about, I don't know, man, Ryan Leaf. I don't know. Maybe Ryan Leaf's the guy you really want. Like Peyton Manning, it was the same deal.
I said.
People got sick and tired of breaking down Peyton Manning and how he was going to be this great can't-miss quarterback, and they got, enamored with the shiny new object in Ryan Leaf. And obviously that went terribly for, a litany of different decisions or reasons, but Peyton Manning was Marvin Harrison Jr. when Peyton Manning was at Tennessee. He was so good for so long. After a while, people found reasons to nitpick. He could never beat, Florida. There's too many big games where we never won a national championship. Look at the Heisman race. There are people still in Tennessee pissed off about the Heisman race because he lost to obviously Charles Woodson, and people think the reason why that happened. Some people, you want to talk about voters, will tell you it's because people just got tired of going over and over with Peyton Manning every single season about, he's a shoo-in to win the Heisman this year, and then you'd find reasons to not vote him. So there is such a thing as fatigue with top-end college prospects, particularly when they've been the complete package for a number of years, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. You're going to knock him for it now? Go ahead and do it, but he's still going to be, I think, in my opinion, a great NFL player.
So I'll play the devil's advocate on the other side of that, because I don't like the missing the media session. I think that's lame. Maybe
of course you and I do.
Well,
you're right. I didn't either. I didn't say I liked that. I'm not saying I liked it. I'm just saying, and part of the reason why the conversation occurs is because I'm like, I had brought up to a number of guys. I'd said it's hilarious to me, and I ended up writing about this. I'm like, how many times am I going to have to watch this NFL Network commercial about the Combine? that has a bunch of guys that have nothing to do with the combine.
Right.
I like the top. You got the top three quarterbacks aren't doing anything. The top two wide receivers aren't doing anything. I'm sitting there waiting for Brock Bowers to step to the line in the 40, and then I'm like, why is he not stepping to the line in the 40? So no, he's not going to run. Okay, great. He's not doing anything. No, I mean, I'm frustrated with guys not doing anything, but it's not a first. There are a lot of guys that don't throw. There are a lot of guys that don't do things. That the media thing bothers me because it's an ability for you to step up and just answer a question, some level of accountability. And I'll give you an example. When during the combine, a very popular thing this year amongst those individuals who didn't do anything, they would get in front of teams and they would grill them on, okay, who made this decision? A lot of teams want to hear players say it was my decision. One theme that is getting stronger and stronger every year when guys opt not to do things is teams don't want to hear you sit down and in front of them and then go, well, it was a group decision between me and my guys or my team or this or that. Teams don't want to hear that. They think that's total BS. They want to hear you take accountability and go, I'm the one who made the decision. Yeah, I'm the one who, looked at this process and here's why and lay it out, and not spread the blame out amongst 3 or 4 different people. I can tell teams are definitely getting annoyed with hearing that answer. So when Marvin doesn't, meet with the media and, get asked questions, it bothers us. I don't think it bothers teams as much. And from a historical perspective, too, you and I both know, and anybody who covered the league long enough, Marvin Harrison did not talk to me. He's not a media guy. Not like talking to the media. Didn't like talking to the media in the locker room. Didn't like talking to the media on the podiums. So I don't know if that's the apple not falling far from the tree in this respect. But, that to me was probably the one missed opportunity. And I know I'm biased as a reporter saying this, but to stand up there and do like Caleb Williams did and every other guy and say, here's why I'm not doing it. There's a rationale behind it. But I'll say this, though. He did walk into weights and measures, right? And then Jaden Daniels, I think teams are shocked. He just no-showed it. Just didn't show up. He was like, yeah, no, I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to get measured. Nothing. And I think the day that happened, there were some teams pretty upset because they're like, oh, okay, now you're a quarterback who's in the middle of this trio, and you're just not going to show up and even let us measure you at this event. We're not even going to get any idea what your actual numbers are. And I think there was an element too of a number of teams not having any idea that was going to happen. I actually think that's worse than not talking to the media. Stepping out there and saying, yeah, I'm supposed to be your franchise quarterback, maybe the number 2 pick in the draft, but I'm going to go ahead and not tell you what I weigh, how tall I am, nothing. I'm not going to let you know anything about me until my pro day. And we'll see if it happens there too, by the way. I think there's even a question about whether he'll go through it at the pro day.
Pretty good stuff. We'll have more with Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports coming up next. We'll take your thoughts, 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, continuing our conversation with Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. So, Charles, we were discussing this the other day. Titans are at pick number 7 right now in the first round, and you've got a really interesting kind of stretch behind them, basically from 11 to 14, with teams that could be in need of a quarterback, be that Minnesota, Denver, Vegas, and a lot of talk about J.J. McCarthy after his performance at the Combine. So what do you think of the hype surrounding J.J. McCarthy, and do you think the Titans could be in good position to potentially deal that pick if a team wants to jump ahead of the Atlanta Falcons?
I mean, it's really interesting. He's definitely the ceiling projection, right? When you talk to anybody about evaluating a prospect, the ceiling projections are always the super dangerous ones because you're sitting there and you're going, okay, there's something limited here in the profile, and there's an element of us having to figure out where we think he can go in the future. That's definitely JJ because, Michigan, this idea that Michigan didn't lean on him to win games just simply is not true. It's just they didn't lean on him to throw a ton to win games. That didn't mean he wasn't doing other things to help them win football games. And, if you watched, go watch the national championship game, go watch the game against Alabama, and you'll see him make, some really key plays and key moments. I mean, it was a third or fourth down play where he took off running against Alabama that I think they don't win the national championship without him, converting it. And it was an insane moment where I looked at it and I was like, okay, that's NFL teams are going to look at that and go, okay, he absolutely had to pull something out right there for them to be able to continue this drive and ultimately win this game. And, so there's those element of intangibles. He did great in the interviews when I talked to some teams. That didn't surprise me. I mean, limited frames, you're sitting there for 18 minutes with guys. I think he did really well in that respect. But the private workouts are the things that I think a lot of teams are going to use to separate. Is he really potentially pushing himself above Drake May? I'm in the I'll believe it when I see it camp. Like Drake May was the guy who I thought during the Combine process I thought was getting negged more than anybody else. Like just a lot of, well, is he really that accurate downfield? Does he always make the right decisions? He's making completions, but it's always not the top completion on the board. At times his interception luck is a little higher than you'd like, all these different things. But he's another one of these guys where people have been staring at him now for, he had the breakout year, and then all last season they expected big things. And there was really, he's one of those kind of nowhere to go but down sort of types. And, but I do think the heat for McCarthy is real. I do. When I asked, coming out of the Combine, I asked a bunch of different scouts and GMs and personnel types. I said, help me shape up now where the quarterbacks are. And everybody said the same thing. It's definitely 4 first-round guys. There's no doubt that McCarthy is in that mix. Everybody seemed to agree he's, top half of the first round somewhere. And then the argument really had turned into like, where does Bo Nix fit? Where does Michael Penix fit? I think if the Titans want to trade back at their spot, they're going to have opportunities. I really do. I think unless May slips, and that could happen, there are a couple of teams in that mix that you mentioned where you kind of know if they don't work something out in free agency. For example, one of them that's dead in that mix, I said, okay, look, you're going to have, you get this quarterback need. You got to do something. You can't just expect somebody's going to be there at your spot. And this person actually said to me, they're like, I don't know, maybe May gets to us. Like, there's a chance that, but, I think once the third quarterback comes off the board, that whole mix of teams that does not address things in free agency, and maybe even if one does, like let's say Kirk goes somewhere, or let's say Russ lands somewhere or whatever, I don't know that they'll look at that player as necessarily being a long-term option at the position. And McCarthy is actually a guy I could see a team taking and redshirting for a year. And I don't think it'll be the 2-year redshirt, but I could definitely see a team taking him, having a pretty solid option at quarterback for a year, and feeling like 2025 is when they'll roll him out on the field. But the Titans, there'll be value, I think, at 7 as long as the third quarterback goes off in front of them.
Yeah. Now, McCarthy's a great athlete, big arm. I do wonder sometimes if he sees it fast enough, but it is hard because they're so dominant up front. But, I mean, I think he's a first-round talent, and I think the redshirt year makes sense. Okay, well, you just touched on it, so I want you to summon all your powers and tell us right now where Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields will be playing next year.
Oh, come on, man.
Come on. We're going to hold you to it.
This is completely ridiculous. Yeah, let me. I would.
You have educated guesses. You have educated guesses.
Look, I think Kirk, like, Atlanta does make some sense to me with Kirk because the roster is in such a good state now, and it really is a team that I think a veteran could come in, and as long as it's a veteran that could come in and play at a high level and they feel like they can trust, and especially in that division, that very easily could be like a 10, maybe 11-win team next season. They have a lot of talent. It's a relatively soft division, particularly if, let's say, Tampa Bay doesn't have a quarterback. It's just a situation where Atlanta is in that kind of middle. They're in that middle ground where if they go and they get a rookie now, it's like, all right, great, we can groom with some of these young guys, but we do have a solid roster. So, I will not rule out. I'm telling you, I will not rule out, even though I think it's probably less than a 20% chance now that he returns to Minnesota, only because I think Kevin O'Connell really wants him back. It's just a situation where, as I told you guys last week, the front office doesn't want to commit the money, the guaranteed money. Kirk has been a secure the bag guy, and I do think I don't want to say there's bad blood at this point, but I do think there's probably a little bit of frustration that as much as the head coach likes Kirk, they weren't able to get at least like a 2-year deal done. But maybe Kirk's market's a little softer than people think. Russell Wilson is going to be the weird one. I'm telling you right now, he's going to be weird because I think there's going to be interest there for him, but I don't know that anybody looks at Russ and sees him as anything but a bridge starter at this stage. I could be completely wrong here. Watch someone come out and sign him to first off, whatever deal he signs, at least up front, is going to be of that minimum, I would assume, because he's already getting paid by Denver.
What, 39 mil? We'll take that 39 mil from the Broncos, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and keep cashing those checks, and whatever team brings him aboard is going to take advantage of that. But I look out there and I'm just like, how many teams out here are really wanting to go out, sign him, everything that comes along with him, and then where do they go with the young piece if he's going to be a bridge starter for them? It's tough for me. I look at Washington because Dan Quinn knows him, right? Like you tend to look out and you go, okay, who has connections with him around the league? Who has the quarterback need? Another thing I would not rule out is maybe he's like when Tannehill came to Tennessee. It's a situation like that where it's, hey, not a ton of interest in him around the league. He does kind of feel like an interesting fit at this point. He definitely seems to have something left in the tank. Maybe he goes somewhere where he feels like he can compete, lock the job up in year one, and then all of a sudden the team's like, hey, you got more left than we thought. Let's make sure we keep you around for a few more years. I could see that. That to me almost feels like it's a more almost appetizing situation for him than just going somewhere where they have a quarterback hole and there's a little bit of desperation. I don't know that's necessarily the greatest fit for him. So that's my way of not really answering your question. And Fields, come on, man, stick it with Fields. Like, will you stop? Like, I don't.
Well, I knew he'd be the tough one, but I'm interested in Fields. Who really? Fields is fascinating to me. Like he's talented. I think he's good, but like, who's committing to that? Who's giving up much for that?
You know what he is? He really reminds me of I feel like he's in that spot right now. He reminds me a little of like Jordan Love in the middle of last season, where we're like, okay, all right, we've seen some stuff. Like, it feels like he's moving in the right direction, but it's still probably, he's still doing some things that are problematic. Where's the development going? It feels to me like personally, I think if he got one more year in Chicago, he might make it. But I think he needs that continuity. I think he needs one more year of continuity. So what scares me, and I think some teams, is this idea of, okay, he's seen some gains. He seems to be, and I think other teams are looking at him. Like I'll give you an example, like Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's looking at him and they're going, okay, well, they're not necessarily making this decision or this, they're not struggling with this right now with him just because of it's not the talent at all. It's that they're stuck in this weird gray area between how fast the talent is moving forward and how quickly the contract decision is coming. And I don't think I think teams know, like the Bears are in a weird spot, and they're also sitting there with the number one pick in the draft with a player who's extremely talented, who, despite not throwing at the combine, I think came out of the combine with a remarkably positive perception. Teams, I thought, felt pretty good about Caleb Williams, having talked to him in some respects. I think there were a couple negative moments in his interviews, but, so it's weird because I'm trying to think the last time, maybe you guys can, have a name on the top of your head where we saw a quarterback like this, who's clearly on his way out but has talent, has shown some stuff. Because we can't say Breeze. I think Breeze had shown so much for the Chargers by the time he was on his way out. Who's that?
Marcus?
Good Lord.
Marcus, will you stop it? Yeah, I just can't.
Breeze is a good one. I was surprised that they did what they did.
Yeah, but the problem with Breeze
is better than Fields right now. Breeze at that point had showed more than Fields had shown.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, Phillip Rivers was, he was killing them in practice. Like, how long can you watch? You go 2 years and Phillip Rivers is killing you in practice. You got to get that guy in the field. And then remember, Breeze had the shoulder. He had that injury.
Right.
That was pretty devastating, and they had no idea. Nick Saban will never, until literally they're burying that guy, he won't shut up about how his NFL career had been so great if the doctors would have just let him sign Drew Brees in Miami. But, I stare at Pittsburgh again because I know the general manager really liked Fields coming out in that draft. I'm telling you that I don't think there's that much confidence left in the quarterback room. And again, Arthur Smith, you have an OC that universally around the league, everybody when he was in Atlanta was like, that makes a lot of sense, like the scheme he runs and what Fields does well. But I just don't know if Arthur wants a guy like I don't know if Arthur's like a big Justin Fields guy. So I can't tell you that the conversation there is not him going, yeah, great, he's got a lot of talent. I'm really not big on when I was in Atlanta and everyone was talking about it, I wasn't that big on the thought of going out and getting Justin Fields. So, but that's the one team where I do think there's an alignment there in terms of the front office really having loved the kid, loved the talent, and again the scheme that I think they will be installing, oddly enough, fits Fields more than I think it'll fit any of those other guys.
Well, Charles, enjoy the beginning of free agency coming up here in the next few days. Thanks for being with us this morning, and we'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely, boys. It'll be an interesting one next week. We'll be right in the middle of it, so looking forward to it.
Absolutely, going to be fun. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports joins us every Thursday morning from 8 to 8:30 here on the program. We'll react to what Charles had to say. Look ahead to NFL free agency coming up next. Take your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Appreciate Charles Robinson for being with us in the last segment. Joins us every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock here on the program. Robby and Rexrode, presented by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls. Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. We got some tickets to give away to see the Preds take on the Buffalo Sabres tonight at Bridgestone Arena. Be caller 5, 615-737. Our phone. I probably should finish the phone number. 615-737-1025. Don't just dial 737. Be a tough start.
Try that.
Caller 5, 615-737-1025. You win a pair of tickets to see the Preds and the Sabres tonight at Bridgestone Arena.
You know what number you need to dial?
What's that?
719-266-2837. It's on my Twitter account. That's the hotline, baby. If you need to pick me up, I need a little bit of. I need to breathe. There's so many takes flying around. They're so bad, and they all center around Stilly, of course. First of all, Jake Greenbrier tells me that he said yesterday that if he fell to the Titans, he's 100% trading down and not picking.
Talking about Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yes, Marvin Harrison Jr. Meanwhile, we have that's beautiful take, Stilly. Chip from Mount Juliet is giving me the whole he's on the Marvin Harrison Sr., mediocre. So he's like, mediocre quarterback or wide receivers elevated by great quarterbacks, which of them were elevated? And I'm like, so you think Marvin Harrison was a mediocre receiver elevated by a great quarterback?
Right.
He says, could have been. Look at his stats versus other QBs. Hey, so then someone's tweeting at me his stats when like Harbaugh was a quarterback for awful, at the beginning of his career. First of all, early in their careers, receivers at that time in the NFL often took time. It was a terrible team. Yes, did Peyton Manning?
His first year, he had 64 catches for almost 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. So, I mean,
right,
wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's not like we're talking about terrible. Right. The outrageous numbers happened. Were they because of Peyton Manning was great? Yes. And other skill guys? Yes. And a good OC? Yes. And good coaching? Yes, of course. He wasn't playing 1-on-11. He was a great player. This is not hard. This is not difficult.
What are we doing?
My God.
It's been a day, man.
Oh.
The day with the takes.
And then we haven't even gotten to the Bills cap purge yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure Jared's mental pretzeling was amazing about that, right?
They didn't cut Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs.
Right.
That's not the cap.
Yeah, because teams aren't so stupid that they would cut their very best players. The cap's fake. My God. Help me.
It was nice.
Serenity now.
And we know. We love our friend Jared. It was nice to hear him admit yesterday that it does look like Kansas City's going to sign Chris Jones.
Oh.
It was nice to hear that.
I remember him kind of getting after you for that one.
Yeah, I do too. It's okay.
Interesting. I'm sure there'll be a full apology.
The L'Jarius Sneed part of this, which we did not have time to get to Charles about, which is interesting. What do you think it's going to take if somebody wants to trade for him? And apparently a lot of people checking in on L'Jarius Sneed and the Chiefs. He's obviously a really good cornerback. They franchise tagged him. I think he's like $19.8 million against the cap now with the tag. So if the Titans or anybody else is going to trade for him, what do we think it takes to land that deal? Knowing that you have to give up compensation and then sign him to a long-term deal, what do we think the return would be for Kansas City that they would accept?
That's a good question.
I'm not giving up a second-round pick for him. I'm just not doing it. And somebody else might, and if somebody else will, then you let somebody else do it. If I'm the Titans, based on where they are right now, I'm not giving up a second-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed.
See, I don't think a trade's going to happen because, the Chiefs obviously are, win now. So I think they're doing this because maybe someone out there thinks he's the final piece, and also you want him long-term, and you're willing to actually give us a haul. But if I'm the Chiefs, I'm happy having him tagged and having him on my team and winning the Super Bowl next year.
Correct.
In part because he helps you do that. So I don't think they're going to settle for anything, and I'm with you. We talked about this on Jared versus Joe yesterday. I'm hesitant on a first or a second giving that up for him just because –
I'm definitely not doing it first.
Yeah. I cut it off at the second, it's just a little rich for my blood. Is there a team out there that can make it work? Yes, you can make it work. But can make it work and feels like that's – is there a team out there that comes to mind that's close, but maybe that really good outside corner could be the difference. Could be they don't lack for much, but that's what they lack.
I mean, the Packers could use that.
Oh, here we go.
Are they close, though?
Here we go. Well, they're in the NFC.
Yeah.
And Jordan Love, and by the way, we talked about this in the break. I don't really agree with you. I know what Charles was saying about Justin Fields and Jordan Love. Like early last season, you still weren't sure about Jordan Love, right? So early last season. But, I mean, Jordan Love I think he's good, man. And I'm not just saying that because you're a Packers fan. I think he's really good. I think the Packers could be there. I mean, that's been one of their biggest issues, right? They've had some bad corners.
Right.
They've had some bad corner plans, some bad moments in recent years.
They have Jair Alexander, and his back's hurt all the time now, so they need another corner. They're going to get another corner. The question is it going to be in the draft, or is it going to be like would you do that? But I mean, other than that, like who's a corner away that's a contender, right? I mean, look, Buffalo got rid of some corners yesterday. Would Buffalo get into the L'Jarius Sneed mix? I don't know. Cap problems.
Maybe.
Cap trouble. Right now.
I don't know. But they do have Mitch Trubisky coming in, which proves the cap is fake. But
good for Mitch.
Yeah, good for him. Man, but those two guys, Russ, because the thing is, we're talking about all this stuff, and I think that it's very possible the Titans could be in this position. But those two guys, Russ and Fields, it's really fascinating. Cousins starts it, right?
I would think so.
But is there anyone that actually – I think Russ is in for a rude awakening. I do. I could be wrong, but I mean, between
somebody who's going to give him vet minimum to come start for even if it's a bridge starter, right?
But who? Yeah, I think you're probably right, but I still can't come up with the perfect team for that.
I still think Raiders is where he's going to end up.
Okay.
I mean, somebody in this stretch here, let's see. So going back to that draft order part of this. Obviously, we know he's not going to be in Denver. You know, if Minnesota can't get their quarterback in the draft, do they take a flyer on Russell Wilson for a year? If Vegas doesn't get their quarterback in the draft, do they take a flyer on Russell Wilson?
And it could be both. It could be that you do, and he's your bridge.
Yeah.
And he's the bridge. Because I do agree with McCarthy. I think McCarthy could be good. I don't think he's ready. And so, well, I mean, look, I like the red shirt for just about anybody if you can do it. So something like that might not be a bad outcome. And then Fields. I'd love to see Fields in Pittsburgh give it a shot. I'd love to see him make it. I think he's talented. I think I have a little bit better opinion of him than you do.
Yes.
But I'm with you. He misses too many passes, and he's a tick late too often. And those are both things that, like, are just killers. To be a great quarterback in the NFL.
I think he's better than Kenny Pickett. So, like, is Pittsburgh totally abandoning Kenny Pickett? Like, that's another question this offseason, too. So,
which is kind of fast to
right,
do.
I mean, it's fast, but
apparently they're not big on him.
Are they giving up on him, or is this like, okay, you've got to do it this year, or you're not going to be our quarterback anymore? Is there an insurance policy that they want to bring in behind him?
Yeah, and it could be. I mean, you could look at it like a competition.
Well, I mean, going back to Russell Wilson, though, like, could Russell Wilson be the insurance policy if Kenny Pickett doesn't work out?
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. 615-737-1025.
Tough scene for baby hands.
Tough scene. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for Pred's Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode. Be caller number 1 at 615-737-1025. If you guess a goal scorer for the Predators tonight, you win a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. That's coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
It's time for Preds Picks to click.
And a shot at the score.
Do you think you know who will score a goal in tonight's Predators game?
Little give and go.
Shoot your shot for a chance to win Preds tickets. Call 615-737-1025 now. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Visit tjandersonhomes.com to see why they are preferred so often. It's Pick to Click, now on Robby and Rexrode.
It's time for Preds Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode, presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Preds back in action tonight at home. The final game of the homestand, taking on the Buffalo Sabres tonight. Puck drop 7 o'clock, pregame 6 o'clock here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The standings and Preds Pick to Click. The listeners creating some separation. 14 correct answers. Joe Rexrode's been stuck at 12 for a good bit here now. So listeners 14, Rexrode at 12. Nick Keyser remains at 9. I am at 6 in the competition. With that in mind, let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Josh. Josh, good morning. Thanks for calling in. Who is your pick to click for the Nashville Predators?
I'm going to take the captain, Romy Yossi.
Thanks for the call, Josh. Yossi, this election, the NHL's first star of the week from last week. Yossi off the board. Joe Rexrode, your pick to click tonight for the Nashville Predators.
Philip Forsberg. And
sure?
Thank you.
He's got a cut.
And thank you, Josh. Yeah, but where is the cut, by the way?
Don't know.
You think it's low. You think it's a skate-related
I think it's low, but I don't
cut.
know. I mean, yeah.
It could be hand.
Could be hand.
It could be hand and, like, stick.
Could be.
Yeah. Well, he's been missing practice. He's been playing. He's been playing well. He's going to score tonight.
Okay. You don't want to save him for maybe me?
No.
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
Yossi Forsberg off the board. Nick Keyser, your pick to click for the Nashville Predators.
Tommy Novak. I think he's due for a goal after signing a contract. So give me Tommy Novechkin.
Tommy Novak. I will go with Ryan O'Reilly. That line looked great the other night, so I think they'll look good again. They've got the Sabres tonight. Sabres are not very good. They just made a trade, and they played last night. So this is set up pretty well for the Predators, which I know some people listening right now are like, please, no.
Yeah, stop it. Stop it.
Just saying.
It will
set
be
up pretty nicely.
It will be interesting. This is just this is pure psychology, but whenever a team is on a heater, and the Preds are on in some ways an unprecedented heater, and then you have that first loss. Sometimes it is tough the next game. It's like it's streaky. It's a streaky league, but I think it's a big moment for this team. Big response needed tonight.
Sabres took Toronto to overtime last night.
Well, that's the thing, too. Like, you get to this time of year, and there is a complete, I guess it's basically like IDGAF sort of thing with the teams that are just out of it. And there's something to that, right?
Yeah.
There's a looseness, a freeness, and teams like the Preds know they have something at stake, and that absolutely makes it more difficult, or can make it more difficult. Not making any excuses. They got to win this game tonight.
They got to win the game, and then there's the deadline part of this too. Trade deadline is tomorrow. The trades got rolling pretty hot and heavy yesterday. Do the Preds get involved with that today? Be that a salary retention of some kind to help facilitate another trade? Like, does somebody call you with a good offer for Alex Carrier that's hard to pass up? I mean, I know me. I will be on morning skate watch this morning. Who's out there? All right, is everybody out there?
Oh,
everybody?
yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Is Alex Carrier out there? Philip Forsberg's not out there. Is he getting traded? Oh, he's got a cut.
Oh,
That's right.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The cut's a real handy excuse, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, boom. No, that's not why he missed practice. No, good. Get out there and take some.
Phil, we'll see you.
Well,
waive your no movement clause.
So we'll have you, Nick. We'll have Alex Doherty. We'll have Ann will be out there.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else is going to be? You guys are going to be racing to take roll call. Maybe you could work together.
Maybe so. Might have to do that. Just eliminate by committee. I mean, looking for a couple guys like Carrier, if he's out there. I mean, look, the likelihood is, I'm still rooting for a mid-game trade at some point. Doesn't necessarily have to be tonight, but at some point here in the next couple of years, I need to see somebody pulled off the bench. Stop playing hockey. Go to the locker room. You're getting traded. It's happened before.
I mean, it's different, but it's like when Andrew Luck, when Schefter got him booed on his on his walk out of the stadium, in the middle of a preseason game.
Yeah. I mean, look, Noah Hannafin The Flames were in Tampa yesterday, and it was rumored for a while that Tampa wanted them. I was like, well,
just keep
locker
them.
Rooms right there.
Yeah, just keep them. Yeah, just walk over there, man.
And then, of course, he ends up in Vegas because everybody ends up in Vegas at the deadline, apparently.
God, the Golden Knights. I mean, it's kind of easy to hate them, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's about
Yes,
it's about enough of this crap with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Their management's just like, yeah, come on down. We'll trade for everybody.
Hey, by the way, some NFL news. Justin Simmons.
Yep, safety.
Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
$14.5 million against a cap. A cap cut by the Denver Broncos. How about that? Interesting.
That's going to do it for us today here on the program. We'll be back for Deadline Day tomorrow. Chasing Big Joe coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.